This is the first base I built in my Minecraft hardcore world, and this is my current base in my world. Notice the difference? Well, if you did, I don't know how to tell you this, but nothing has changed. I've spent over 400 days in this world, which is more than 130 hours of real time, and my base looks the exact same aside from a few different blocks from some stray creepers. But today that changes. I've decided I'm going to create a cottagecore mansion using the new 1.20 cherry wood, but stopping there would be too easy. To bring my new base, thousands of blocks away, to life, I'm going to transform the land around it into a giant enchanted mushroom garden. Sounds simple? Well, that's what me a month ago thought too. Anyways, if you want to like or subscribe, I would really appreciate it. It's free, it's super quick, it shows me that you guys are enjoying this series, and you can always change your mind. Okay, so the first thing I'm definitely going to need to do is try to find some emeralds so that I can trade with some of the villagers in this village for apples, and then I can make them into golden apples, and I can convert back all of the other villagers in my trading hall into normal villagers because they've been zombies for a while, which is sort of mean of me, but I do need to convert them back because it's going to make this whole project a lot easier to have a sustainable way of trading. And since I've traded enough with these guys, I already have the apple... Oh, I can't lose that. But I already have the apple trade, and I have enough gold because of the gold farm that I created, so really this is gonna be a simple thing. I just need to make the right potions to convert them. Oh my gosh, where is that coming from? Why are you doing that? Why was he doing that? There's not even a villager in here. Okay. And while I'm waiting for all of my villagers to convert back from zombies, I'm going to get started on collecting up all of the materials for a tree farm so that the actual building process of this whole project is going to go a lot faster. And now that I have most of the materials collected up and my villagers are converted back into their normal selves, it's going to be significantly easier to just get started. I think I'm going to make one last pit stop by my gunpowder farm so that I can get the last few things from over there, but other than that, I'm pretty much done. The last thing I'm definitely going to need is a few more rockets so that I can actually try to find where I'm going, because I don't know how far away this is supposed to be. I've generated a lot of my world into 1.19, so I'm going to have to go pretty far out to find a place where 1.20 is actually loaded. And because my laptop is not the fastest, I'm probably just going to turn on my coordinates and then try to fly as far as I can until the biome under me says that it's Cherry Grove, or else this is going to take hours and hours. Ooh, right here. Okay, so I'm about 6,000 blocks away from my base because my base is kind of near 0, 0. I think it's like 600, 100. And this is right next to a village, so this is probably a really good place to find it. Oh my gosh, these flowers are so cool. Can you stack more than? Okay, you can't stack more than 4, but I love these. These are going to be super cool for decoration. Oh my gosh, and I love the way that this wood looks. It also makes a different sound. Oh, that's so cool. I'm trying to look around to find a place where I actually want to build the base, and this is super cool, but I feel like building on such a steep slope kind of limits what I can and can't do. I've decided that this area is far away enough from where I want to build my base that it's not going to be super loud, but it's also a good flat area for building the tree farm, so I'm just going to get started. So, long story short, the farm doesn't work. And it's not that I built it wrong. I mean, it probably actually is because I built it wrong, but it also just doesn't work the way that I think it's supposed to. Like, it's supposed to make it so that the moss can sometimes grow azalea, but it also needs like a bunch of bone meal, which it said that it didn't, but now it's saying that it does unless you want to build a bone meal farm. So anyways, long story short, it doesn't really work the way I wanted it to, and it also doesn't grow cherry trees very easily, and I have to manually turn on the TNT duper. I've spent like the last hour and a half trying to fix this, and it's not seeming to work the way I want it to. So I think what it comes down to is that this just isn't gonna work, and I just spent like 3 hours trying to get this to work, and I don't even think that it's very useful. Like, if I turn that on, then it turns the TNT on, which I guess is easier. But still, that means I'm gonna have to manually turn on the TNT duper and manually put all the trees in, and at that point I should have just made a different farm. I think I'm just gonna collect up all the wood manually, and I just wasted like a few hours of my time on something that I don't even think will work if I wanted it to work, unless I want to build a whole separate farm to add on to it. So that's kind of not fun. I'm just going to collect up all this wood manually, so I'm going to reserve these slots and then try to fill them all up so that I have enough wood, and I think I'm also going to stop at my base after I collect up all of the cherry and oak wood, and then I'm going to get some spruce for like accents on building the house. And after that quick deforestation sesh, I think I'm just going to get started on actually building all of the house. And so I'm just going to flatten this area a little bit, terraform, and then I can get started on the actual build. And this is going to be my first like large-scale building in quite a while, so I'm hoping I do it well. I laid out the outline for how I want the actual house to look and how big the bottom floor is going to be, and I'm probably just going to get started. I did end up stopping back at my other base and getting some spruce wood, and I'm just going to try to frame the outline of this in some oak wood, and then I can work on a little bit of accents, and hopefully it looks like I've improved since my building at the very beginning of this series. I'm going to work on this side first. Okay, I'm actually really proud of the way that that looks, and I feel like it'll look really good on the completed house. I've pretty much gotten the bottom floor to be done. I'm going to take a look from out here, but I think that it's pretty much good, and I can get started on working on the second and the third floors, but they're just going to get progressively smaller. And honestly, after all of that, well, it was only like not even a minute to you guys. That was about 3.5 hours worth of just straight building. But I think overall I'm done, and I'm really proud of the way that this looks. The only thing I might need to do is add like a few more things. I still need to go through and put some windows in, but other than that, this is pretty much done, and I can get started on working on the interior. I'm going to go around really quick and light up this whole area so that the inside and the outside of my house are lit up, and then I can get started on working on the interior, which is another thing that I've definitely hoped I've improved upon. I then went through and followed the same steps that I did for the outside, first laying out an interior design and then trying to work around the way that I wanted all of the rooms to be spaced out. I created a few floor plans, and then I went through and added some extra details. I really like the way that this fireplace looks. I feel like it makes the whole room so much cozier, and that's really what I'm going for with this build. The last few things that I'm going to have to add are a few more candles just to light up the whole area, but other than that, I'm pretty much done with the interior aside from maybe a thing or two. And there we go. I'm going to walk around this area as I'm lighting up these candles and show you guys, but this is sort of the bottom floor. This is the middle floor that I went for in like this little outlook area, which I think is really cute and cozy. And then there's this little like workspace area, and then there's up here, which is my bedroom, which I might have to add a few things to because it's looking a little bit bare, but other than that, I think that this whole place looks significantly better. There's also that art room, which I thought was pretty cool. But as easy as it would be to stop right about there and then not have to add anything else, I have kind of decided that I'm going to transform this entire valley into like a giant enchanted forest, because I feel like I did a small scale version of that at my other base, and I want to keep that theme, but I want to show how much I've improved to myself. Really quick, I'm going to fly down here and then try to like mentally map out the way that I want this to look. I think that I'm going to try to make it so that this entire area looks like grassy and green over, and then I can go over it in a lot of builds. The only thing I might want to keep as stone is this whole pond area, which I can turn into like a little fishing lake, and I can maybe add like a fisherman's house and then a few other extra builds onto that. But yeah, I think I also want to keep this river connected and maybe add like a little waterfall from the pond into the river, and I feel like that could look really cool. And yeah, I'm just going to try to transform as much of this area as possible so that it stops looking like a valley and starts looking like a giant enchanted forest. I'm thinking over there I'm going to try to add a giant bridge and then maybe have it look like there's a giant waterfall coming down from up there into this river. And then, I don't know, I think I'm going to add some bridges and I'll see what I can come up with. I found this dungeon in the little cave under the river and... ooh, music discs! Oh, that's so nice. I think I can use a lot of this stuff for my builds, so that's good. And yeah, other than that, I don't really think that I can map it out any more than just getting started on it, and then I can always go back and fix it, but I'm going to transform this as much as possible. And though it may not look like it from this clip, this was hours worth of transforming the land, covering up little caves and areas that I didn't want showing anymore, and then going through and bone mealing up this entire moss area. Because if I were to cover up all of this stone in dirt, it would turn into grass, and then the grass would be like a dark green color. I decided to go over all of it in moss so that it still maintained that bright green color and none of it looked like dull or depressing, and so I'm going to fill this area in, but that's the reason why I used moss and not dirt for a lot of that. And the one other thing I'm going to have to do that's main for this area is transform this little river area so that it looks a little bit more connected to the rest of the build and the whole area flows a little bit better. Because the water is being super difficult, I'm going to cover all of this up later and fill in the rest of the pond in a second, but right now I'm going to make a little fisherman's house that can connect to this pond, and then it looks a little bit more like part of the build and it has a little bit more life. And one other thing that I did really fast was make this little river area, and now that I'm done with terraforming the land in general, I think I'm going to have to go back to my other two bases, by the gunpowder farm and by my villager trading hall, and collect up the resources I'm going to need to make this entire like enchanted magic forest build, so I'm going to get all the stuff for that. And now that I'm back, I'm going to have to take a second and organize myself because I have the most cluttered, unorganized storage system ever. While I was here, I put mending on my shovel, and now I'm going to head up to my golden XP farm and I'm going to mend the shovel because it is super duper broken, and I think like one or two more, I don't even know, blocks broken and it would probably break, which I really don't want because it's a good shovel. And I had to heal up the shovel because right now I think I'm going to fill up an entire shulker box worth of sand so that I can cook it all down into glass with an auto smelter that I'm going to make, and then I can use stained glass and glass in the build. And with that, I might have destroyed this beach, but that's okay because it's in pursuit of making a different area a little bit more beautiful, and I normally don't come over here, so it's not that big of a deal. I have collected a bunch of dyes from where I had originally used them to dye all of my sheep for my wool farm, and one other thing I'm going to do is break down this like homemade weird auto smelter that I tried to create, but in reality it doesn't actually work as an auto smelter, so I'm just going to use all the resources from it and not actually have to deal with it, and I can make an auto smelter back over by my other build. I've decided that this is going to be the industrial side of this side of the world, so I'm going to make the auto smelter really fast and then I can cook down all of the glass and use it. I don't know why I hadn't built one of those earlier. That was the easiest and fastest build probably in my entire world, so that's super great, and it's working super fast. So I can just leave that in rendered chunks and I can get started on the actual enchanted forest part of this. Horse! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, I forgot that I actually have a saddle from the dungeon, and I can use this and put it on the horse, as well as the fact that I have diamond horse armor in this shulker box, so I can deck this horse out and I can keep it. I'm gonna keep you inside of the house so that a creeper doesn't end up killing you, because you're really cool and I don't want you to die. And getting back to what I was doing before the horse distracted me is I mapped out this whole little cottage area, which I think I'm going to turn into an enchantment room, and this can be where I keep my enchanting stuff on this side. I decided I was going to have two separate sections, one for an anvil and one for an enchantment room, and honestly I feel like I did a really good job of making this build interesting and not just copy-pasted. I really like the way that this turned out. I like how overgrown it looks, but it also looks somewhat organized and really happy and bright, so I'm glad that I kept it, and I'm glad that I have an area for this on this side of my world and I don't have to constantly go back to my other base for when I want to enchant stuff. And one of the other things I'm going to have to do before I can actually get started on building the enchanted forest area is collect up all of the resources, one of them being shroom lights and glowstone, and I'm going to have to get obsidian to go to the nether for this. And I also want enough obsidian that I can create a big portal for the future because there's going to be a nether section of this build. So I'm going to collect up this obsidian, go to the nether, and then get shroom lights and glowstone. And this is all the glass that we have so far because of the fact that I left my auto smelter in rendered chunks, and this is, I think, more than enough. I'm really glad with how fast this thing works, so I can just keep going and this should be good. And now that I've done all of the prep that I think I'm going to need for a while, I can lay out all of my shulker boxes and I can just get started on making all of these things. I'm going to make these like rainbow mushrooms, and I'm going to test out a few things first, but then once I get a groove of it, I'm just going to put my head down and work so that this whole area is lit up with these big enchanted stained glass mushrooms. As I said, I tested out a few methods of how I wanted these things to be built, and then after I got the hang of it, I just got started and put my head down and worked until this entire area was covered in stained glass mushrooms. I really like this, not only because I feel like these look super cool, but they also light up the area without me having to use a bunch of torches. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make like a stained glass lake. I don't really know how else to describe it, but I'm pretty much going to make a giant lake and then fill it in with like wool and stained glass so that it has the fog effect. And it sort of looks like a rainbow is seeping out of the ground, which I feel is going to look really cool once I'm done. And the first thing I'm going to have to do is outline the area that I want with a color I'm not going to use. Then I'm going to have to go in and dig out 8 blocks below every single piece of stained glass that is going to be showing, and then I'm going to fill in the bottom with the color that the stained glass is going to match to so that it has a base and it doesn't just look like there's stone at the very bottom. I'm going to fill in the sides with enough wool, and then I can actually fill it in with glass. I think I'm finished with this. The one thing I've sort of missed is like this dark blue wool creeping out, but I think that the fade from like the purple to the light blue isn't that big of a deal because I don't have any more dark blue wool. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I think the next thing I'm going to do is I was thinking I was going to make like a little like a gazebo area. And I just finished with the gazebo. I'm going to light it up really fast, and I feel like this is a super cute build. I think that it sort of breaks up the like intense rainbow colors with like a light sort of build, and I feel like it looks really cute, and it also is challenging me with a lot of different building styles by creating all of these different things, which is really good practice. The next thing I'm going to get working on is making sure that this nether portal looks a little bit cooler, as I said before, so that it has like its own separate build, but it's not like super overdone and it doesn't just look plain. I then got started on actually making the area for the nether portal and made it look like it was built into the side of the mountain under the bridge that I had originally created, which I feel like looked pretty cool in the end. I then created a little path up to it, and then I decided that I was going to make this whole area flow a little bit better and connect to the rest of the build, and made this little pond area. And the last thing I really want to do over here is make a bunch of mushrooms on this bottom part so that it sort of ties into the rest of the build and it doesn't look a little bit separate. And with that, that is the last mushroom for over here. I only added a few, but I feel like they really just make the rest of the build to tie into this area over here, which I feel like looks really cool, and I'm really proud of the way that this whole part of the world turned out. And with all of that, I feel like I'm done with this area. I feel like it looks really cool, and there's some parts that I'm more and less proud of, but overall, I gave every part my effort, which is, I think, what's really important, and it took way longer than you would expect. I mean, like hours, if not weeks of my time. I think that at the beginning of my world, I wouldn't have even been able to get something even relatively close to this cool, so I'm really glad that I was able to just put my head down and work, and I've been able to show myself that I actually have improved at building, which is one of the main things that I want to get better at, and so I'm going to always keep trying, but for now, I think that me being able to show myself that I can do this is very good practice.